My wife drained our joint savings to fund her self-care retreat. Now I found out she spent it on a week with her ex. I'm a 34-year-old man, and if you had asked me a year ago, I would have sworn my wife, Laura, was the most responsible, grounded person I'd ever met. We've been married for 7 years, and until recently, we shared everything: our finances, our decisions, our plans for the future. That illusion shattered 2 months ago, and I can't look at her the same way ever again. It started with something small: Laura telling me she needed a break. She'd been burned out from work, constantly stressed, and claimed she was losing herself. I believed her because she's always been the type to keep pushing until she breaks. She suggested taking a self-care retreat, a week at a wellness resort she'd found online. The catch: it was pricey. Like, wipe out our savings pricey. At first, I hesitated. That money was meant for our down payment on a bigger place next year. But she looked at me, with that trembling voice and watery eyes, saying, "I just need this, or I don't know what will happen to me." I caved. I told her to take what she needed from our joint account. She left on a Sunday morning with a suitcase and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. For a week, she barely texted me, just the occasional, "I'm okay," or a picture of a spa. Something felt off, but I didn't push. I told myself she was disconnecting. Then, 3 days after she came back, I got a call from a friend who works at the same resort she supposedly stayed at. "Man, I thought you should know. Laura never checked in here." My stomach dropped so fast I almost passed out. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I went through her credit card history. That's when I found it: receipts for dinners, hotel stays, and experience packages, all in another city booked for 2. And one of those dinners, at a place she'd once told me was her special spot, with her ex, Daniel. I thought my hands would rip the statement in half. She didn't just waste our money, she spent it rekindling something I thought was dead years ago. And the worst part, she used my trust as her cover. The night I found the receipts, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, listening to Laura's breathing beside me, wondering how she could sleep so peacefully after robbing me blind, not just financially, but emotionally. Every time I closed my eyes, I pictured her at that fancy restaurant, leaning across the table toward Daniel, laughing that same laugh she used to give me when we first started dating. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to confront her with half-baked suspicions. I needed proof, something undeniable. So, while she was in the shower, I checked her phone. She usually kept it face down, but that morning, she left it charging on her nightstand. The passcode, the same it's always been. I wish I hadn't opened it. Her messages with Daniel went back months. Flirty banter. Late night, "I can't sleep without thinking about you," texts, and a string of photos from their week together. They weren't just sightseeing, there were pictures of them in bed, her wearing the silk robe I bought her for our 3rd anniversary. The timestamps matched the retreat dates exactly. I felt my chest tighten so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the intimacy. She hadn't just had sex with him, she'd given him parts of herself she hadn't given me in years. The way she smiled at him in those photos. I'd been replaced long before I even realized there was a game being played. I didn't say a word to her that morning. Instead, I called my boss and took a sick day. I needed time to think. I forwarded every single message and photo to my personal email, then saved them on a flash drive. I wasn't sure yet what I was going to do with them, but I knew I needed to hold on to the truth, because Laura was good at twisting stories. When she came out of the shower, she acted like nothing was wrong. "Want me to make breakfast?" she asked, wearing my t-shirt like it meant something. I nodded, pretending I was fine. But inside, I was mapping out every move I'd make next. The first thing I did was call the bank. I told them there had been unauthorized withdrawals from our joint account. They froze the card immediately. Then I called our landlord and asked about the possibility of ending our lease early. I didn't tell them why yet. That night, while she was cooking, I brought it up, calmly at first. "So, how was your self-care retreat?" I asked, leaning on the counter. She smiled like she'd been waiting to gush about it. "It was amazing. Exactly what I needed." I stared at her. "Funny, because according to the resort, you never checked in." The blood drained from her face. She tried to speak, but nothing came out at first. "Then, they must be made a mistake." "Stop. I know where you were. I've seen the receipts. And the photos. You didn't just take my money, you spent it screwing your ex." Her hands started shaking. "It's not what you think." "Oh, really?" I snapped, my voice finally breaking. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what I think." "You lied, Laura. You lied to my face, and emptied our savings for him." She started crying, babbling about how she needed closure, and how Daniel had been there for her, in ways I supposedly wasn't. I stood there, numb, realizing that every word was another shovel of dirt on the grave of our marriage. By the time she finished her excuses, I'd made my decision. She just didn't know it yet. I didn't sleep that night either. Not a minute. I just lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe, wondering how many other nights she'd come home to my bed smelling like someone else's. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw those photos burned into my brain, her wearing my silk robe, her hands tangled in his hair, that lazy satisfied smile on her face. That smile used to be mine. By morning, my exhaustion had turned into something sharper, colder. I wasn't going to scream or throw things like in the movies. That would give her the satisfaction of painting me as the angry, unstable husband when she retold the story to her friends. No, I was going to do this my way. Silent, calculated, surgical. Step 1 was financial. I'd already frozen the joint account, but now I went further. I moved my paycheck deposit to a new, separate account only in my name. I canceled her access to the credit card she loved to max out, leaving her with only her personal one, already dangerously close to its limit. I even called the bank about the car loan, which was in both our names, and started preparing the paperwork to take my name off completely. Step 2 was information. I backed up everything, her texts, her emails, even screenshots of her social media DMs where she was venting to her friends about how controlling I was. Funny thing, those were all sent while she was drinking wine in bed with her ex, on my dime. Step 3 was the part one didn't think I had in me. I reached out to Daniel's girlfriend. I didn't even know if he had one, but a quick scroll through his tagged photos showed a woman smiling with him just weeks before their little getaway. Her name was Megan. I found her on Instagram, sent a polite message, and attached a folder of screenshots and photos with the simple caption, "Thought you should know what he was doing last month." She didn't respond right away, but I knew it was just a matter of time. When I came home from work that day, Laura was waiting for me in the kitchen, arms crossed, face red. "Why is the card declined?" "I was at the store and..." "Because you're done spending my money," I said, dropping my keys. "From now on, you pay for your own self-care." She launched into another performance about how I was overreacting, how she only went to Daniel for emotional support, and the trip was a mistake she regrets. I didn't say a word. I just watched her, and I think that scared her more than yelling would have. That night, my phone buzzed. It was Megan. "Holy SHT. Thank you for telling me. I just kicked him out. He's been lying to me for years." Then she added, "I think you and I need to talk. I have things you should see." The next day, we met at a coffee shop. Megan came in with a tote bag full of printouts and her phone loaded with screenshots. Turns out, Daniel and Laura's little affair had been going on for over a year. Hotel receipts, gift purchases, even fake work trips, where she'd text me she was stuck in meetings while actually sharing a bed with him. And here's the kicker. Megan had proof that Laura had been sending him money months before the self-care retreat from our joint account. I walked out of that cafe with a folder under my arm and a plan forming in my head. The woman sleeping in my bed thought she was the smart one. She thought she could drain me dry, then toss me aside when she was done. She had no idea I was about to take everything back, and then some. The next few days were a blur of quiet preparation. I didn't tell Laura anything. I didn't argue. I didn't even look angry. I just played the role of the subdued, hurt husband, because I wanted her to believe she'd won. I wanted her to relax enough to make a mistake. The more I stayed silent, the more she started to fill the air with justifications. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. You were distant. All the cliches cheaters pull out when they're trying to justify the unjustifiable. She thought if she kept talking, maybe one of her excuses would stick. Meanwhile, I was laying the groundwork. I'd already moved my money out of reach, but now I started gathering the rest of what I needed. Proof of financial misconduct, screenshots of her transfers to Daniel from our joint account, proof of the affair, photos, messages, hotel bookings, a timeline cross-referenced with my work schedule to show when she lied about her whereabouts. Megan, bless her, became an unexpected ally. She sent me dozens more messages between Laura and Daniel, including one where they laughed about me working like a dog while they drank champagne in a hotel bed. Reading that one, I swear I could actually hear my pulse pounding in my ears. Once I had everything, I called my lawyer. I told him I wanted a divorce, full separation of assets, and a clear record showing she drained marital funds for an affair. He whistled when he saw the evidence. You're in a strong position. Don't tip her off yet. We'll serve her when she's least expecting it. That's when the idea hit me. I didn't want this to just end quietly. No, Laura had stolen from me and humiliated me. She needed to feel that same sting, That same collapse of her carefully built image. And I knew exactly when and where to do it. Her birthday was coming up in 2 weeks. She'd been planning a big dinner with friends, colleagues, and some of my family. I was supposed to pay for it, of course. Instead, I called the restaurant privately, booked the same night under my name, and arranged for something very special. The day of her birthday, I acted normal. I even gave her a wrapped box in the morning. Inside was a cheap scarf I bought last minute. She forced a smile, clearly expecting something bigger. I told her I'd planned a surprise for that evening. She didn't need to know the surprise was mine alone. When we arrived at the restaurant, everyone was already seated. The drinks were flowing, the small talk buzzing. Laura was in her element, laughing, soaking up the attention. That's when I stood, tapped my glass, and said, "Before we eat, I have a little presentation, a tribute to the woman of the hour." The waiter wheeled over a small projector I'd rented. The lights dimmed. At first, the screen showed sweet photos of us from our early years, holidays, our wedding, goofy selfies. Everyone smiled. Laura blushed. Then the images shifted. The next slide was a hotel bill for 2, dated during her self-care retreat. Then came the text with Daniel. Then the photos Megan had given me. Picture after picture, time-stamped, location tagged. All of them painting the clearest possible portrait of betrayal. The room went silent except for the clicking of the slides. Laura's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Someone in the back muttered, "Jesus Christ," and a chair scraped as one of her friends got up to leave. When it ended, I looked right at her and said, "Happy birthday, Laura. We're done." I walked out. Didn't wait for dessert, didn't say goodbye to anyone. I just left her there, in the ruins she built herself. That night, the papers were served. She texted me 100 times, alternating between rage and begging. I didn't answer. The next day, she was blocked everywhere. By the end of the week, her reputation in our circle was in shreds. Not because I said a word, because the people she lied to saw the truth with their own eyes. And for the first time in months, I slept like a baby. The morning after the restaurant, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Missed calls from Laura, voicemails from mutual friends, even a few texts from her mother telling me I'd gone too far and humiliated her daughter beyond repair. I didn't reply to any of them. I wasn't interested in defending myself to people who didn't know, or didn't care, about the damage she'd done to me first. By mid-afternoon, the story had already spread. Someone had filmed the entire presentation at the restaurant, every slide, every message, every damning photo, and sent it to a group chat that included half her colleagues. From there, it leaked to her office Slack. By the time she showed up for work 2 days later, she was called into HR. Not because they cared about her personal life, but because some of those trips had been during remote work days she'd billed as hours on company time. She was suspended pending an investigation. I heard about that not from her, but from Megan, who sent me a screenshot of Laura's temporary leave announcement. Megan and I weren't friends, but there was a kind of mutual respect now, a silent acknowledgement that we'd both been played by the same man and woman, and neither of us was going to let them get away with it. Legally, things moved fast. My lawyer filed for divorce citing marital misconduct and dissipation of marital assets, with the evidence of her draining the joint account for an affair, plus proof she'd been funneling money to Daniel for months. She didn't have much to fight back with. She tried to demand half of my remaining savings. My lawyer laughed in her face during mediation. In the end, she walked away with almost nothing but her clothes, her personal debts, and the lease on an apartment she could barely afford. Socially, she was radioactive. Friends she'd known for years stopped inviting her to anything. My family, who had always been polite to her, even when she was difficult, cut contact completely. Even her own sister called me privately to say, "I can't believe she threw it all away for him." As for Daniel, Megan told me he tried to crawl back to her once Laura's world started crumbling. She blocked him without a second thought. Last I heard, he was couch surfing at a friend's place after his landlord kicked him out for unpaid rent. I'd like to say I felt triumphant, but the truth is it wasn't about feeling good. It was about balance. About making sure she didn't walk away smiling while I was left bleeding. She took something from me I can never get back. Not just the money, but the trust, the version of myself that believed I was safe in my own marriage. I've since moved into a smaller apartment. Just me and a few boxes of essentials. I kept the flash drive with all the evidence locked in a drawer, not because I need it anymore, but as a reminder of what I survived. Sometimes, I still get the urge to text her, not because I miss her, but because there's a part of me that wants to hear her admit it. To hear her finally say, "Yes, I chose him over you, and I regret it." But I know she never will, so I let silence do the talking. People keep asking me if I'll ever trust again, if I'll ever get married again. I don't know. Right now, I'm just learning to enjoy peace. The kind of peace you only appreciate after living in chaos you didn't even realize you were in. She's out there somewhere, probably telling her version of events, painting herself as the victim. But deep down, she knows exactly what she did. And so does everyone else who matters. And that's enough for me. I don't know if that makes me petty, or if it makes me smart. All I know is after what she did, after what I did in return, we're finally even, or at least, as even as two people can be, when love turns into war. I still wonder sometimes if that war changed me too much. If I'll ever be the man I was before, or if this is just who I am now, I don't know. Follow me for more stories.